former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu will return to court this morning for a hearing of his bail application. Waititu is behind bars after he was sentenced to serve for 12 years in prison or pay a fine of 53 million Kenyan shillings for graft last week, moved to court again seeking to be released on bail pending hearing and determination of his appeal. The Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka is expected at the Milimani High Court at 9:30 a.m. to show solidarity with the ex-county boss, who is a close ally. The Milimani High Court judge Lucy Njuguna denied him bail pending his appeal for not presenting sufficient grounds to warrant his release. Waititu had sought bail citing health concerns as one of the reasons for his release. In the second attempt, lawyer Kibe Mungai, representing Waititu, argued that as per the grounds listed in the supplementary petition filed on March 11, 2025, there is an overwhelming chance of success for him to be out on bail.
Pearl Newsbeat.
Members of Parliament now want the State Department of Higher Education to provide details of beneficiaries of 3.1 billion Kenyan shillings granted to private universities for government-sponsored students. This is after the Office of the Auditor General flagged out 412 million Kenyan shillings that were disbursed to 15 private institutions as capitation for 9,000 students who had stayed beyond the duration of their courses. Higher Education Principal Secretary Beatrice Inyangala was at pains to convince the members of Parliament that the Auditor General relied on data that had not been updated by the University Fund.
Pearl Newsbeat.
And Kakamega Governor Fernandez Baraza has defended the Council of Governors budget policy statement demanding 547 billion Kenya shillings in shareable revenue for the 2025-2026 financial year. Baraza says the figure was informed by the national legislations stemming from the housing levy and the social health authority that demands the devolved units who are employers to remit statutory deductions on behalf of the employees. Baraza said that the Senate recommended a 460 billion Kenya shillings allocation, stating that will be the governor's irreducible minimum for the next financial year.
Pearl Newsbeat.
And Machakos Deputy Governor Francis Mwangangi has urged the incoming Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC team to uphold transparency and fairness in electoral processes, warning against any form of bias that could undermine democracy. He has emphasized the need for inclusive governance, calling on leaders to prioritize the interests of all citizens, regardless of political affiliations. Speaking at a local media, he stressed that the success of Kenya's democracy hinges on credible elections and equitable representation.
BC yetu, wale watakaopata hiyo nafasi ya kuhudumia Wakenya, tafadhalini wekeni nchi yetu mbele. Tafadhalini tufanye ile kazi inayofaa. Watoe uongozi, watoe usimamizi mwema, ndio tuone ya kwamba nchi ya Kenya inaweza endelea. Na tujue tuko na teknolojia. Saa hii inawezekana na imetendeka mahali pengine cheaply but very effective and efficient. Imetendeka mahali pengine kwamba tufungue saa 12, saa 11 tufunge na tuwe tunajua viongozi wetu wale wamechaguliwa kwa sababu ya teknolojia.
Pearl Newsbeat.
And on the story earlier on, Kakamega Governor Fernandez Baraza has defended the Council of Governors budget policy statement demanding for 547 billion Kenya shillings in allocation for the shareable revenue for the 2025-2026 financial year. Baraza says the figure was informed by the national legislation stemming from the housing levy and the social health authority that demands devolved units who are employers to remit statutory deductions for their employees.
Not considering some of the specific non-discretionary expenses arising from national legislation. For example, the housing levy. We have expenses arising from that legislation, almost 4 billion shillings, which in my view should be an input on the DORA conversation. We have SHA, which is already an expense arising from national legislation. On the employer side, we're supposed to have that as an itemized budget item, around 3.8 billion. We have the county aggregation and industrial parks, conditional grants. It's already a program that is itemized. Again, expectations of there were supposed to finance 500 million minimum 250, 250. Itemized. So when you have all those items not considered, then it's absurd.
Baraza was speaking at a local media.
Pearl Newsbeat.
And hundreds of people have taken part in the largest anti-Hamas protest in Gaza since the war with Israel began, taking to the streets to demand the group step down from power. Masked Hamas militants, some armed with guns and others carrying batons, intervened and forcibly dispersed the protesters, assaulting several of them. Videos shared widely on social media by activists typically critical of Hamas showed young men marching through the streets of Beit Lahia, northern Gaza on Tuesday evening, chanting "Out, out, Hamas." Out. Pro-Hamas supporters defended the group, downplayed the significance of the demonstrations, and accused the participants of being traitors. Hamas is yet to comment. The protest in northern Gaza came a day after Islamic Jihad gunmen launched rockets at Israel, prompting an Israeli decision to evacuate large parts of Beit Lahia, which has sparked public anger in the area. Israel has resumed its military campaign in Gaza following nearly 2 months of ceasefire, blaming Hamas for rejecting a new U.S. proposal to extend the truce. Hamas, in turn, has accused Israel of abandoning the regional deal agreed in January. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed and thousands displaced since the Israeli military operations resumed with the airstrikes on the 18th of March. One of the protesters, Beit Lahia resident Mohammed Daib, had his home destroyed in the war and lost his brother in an Israeli airstrike a year ago.
Pearl Radio, the home of fresh and classic hits.